All right, thanks for joining me. So today we're going to talk about multi-sowing successes in the garden. So this year we decided to multi-sow a lot of things, and we're going to go through and we're going to look at each of those and I guess see how it performed. So the first one was peas. So our peas did really well. We sowed them in groups of 4 in modules and then planted them outside. The peas have since finished. Actually, we're just finished our hot spell, and they're planted 8 inches apart, and they all just grew. And the beautiful thing is that, you know, I didn't need to make a whole bunch of furrows and drop all the seeds. I did it all in the comfort of my greenhouse really early in the year, and came out and I popped basically a module down in the ground every 8 inches. So it was definitely less work. So I was pleased. Overall, good yield on the peas. Next, we'll head up to the upper garden, where we'll talk a little bit about onions. Onions are a big thing for us. We use quite a few alliums, garlic, onions, and this year leeks. So I decided that we needed a lot more space for them in the garden. Of course, when you're dealing with a garden of this size, you do have limited space. I mean, it's still quite a bit of space, but you know, it's limited space really. So you're always kind of optimizing every year what you ran out of last year, figuring out what you need moving forward. So this year I've planted, so this is 1, 2, 3, and over here 4 beds that are completely filled with alliums. And there are 4 different varieties of onions, alliums here. We have a Cartier hybrid onion. It's an early maturing onion, but it's long day, so it bulbs well here. And these were multi-sown, so these results are actually really good. Look at the size of these onions. So this is probably some of the best onions I've ever grown. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. Multi-sowing probably didn't play a part in that. I'm assuming that just the soil fertility did. We're constantly adding compost to this soil, and it's been bulked up over the period of the last 2 to 3 years. So a lot of the reason why they look so big is because of that. But they just pushed each other out of the way. I mean, look, 3 onions all in a group. So some are planted in 3s, some are planted in 2s, some are planted in 4s, like these over here. Once again here, look at these 3. They're big onions. You know, they're definitely probably maybe twice the size, almost twice the size of a baseball, if I were to guess. So Cartier does really well when you multi-sow. And for those of you that follow us on Facebook, we did a multi-sowing onion experiment where basically we just scattered all the seeds into one tray. And when it came time to plant out, all we did was break apart all of the onions basically, and we just said, okay, I'm going to take 4 out of the tray. So you grab 4, you pull it and the roots out, you jab it down in the ground, and that's really what we did. So onions were really easy this year. There was no planting in modules or anything like that. It was just scatter all the seeds into a tray and then plant them out in groups. So here, just in this little section right to here, which are Cartier, these encompass about 15 groups, 18 groups at 3. So I mean, we're talking about, you know, almost 60 onions just in this little area that's under 10 feet by 30 inches. So the planting density is really good, and as you can see, once again, from the size of the onions, you know, that multi-sowing makes less work, and it doesn't really affect yields as far as I can tell right now. These are definitely onions as good or better than what I had last year. Okay, so shallots are another type of allium that we grew this year. and my shallots have done really, really well. I grow Ambition. I've grown Ambition 2 years in a row now, mainly because it's a short season onion. It grows like in under, I think it's 100 days, which is great for Newfoundland. And I've had good results. They have seemed to have a fairly high bolt tolerance, so they don't bolt, and they grow really well. So here they are, multi-sown. And we did the same thing with these. These were just scattered seeds in a big tray, so it was just it looked like just grass. And we literally tore them apart, and we popped 3 in a group, and you can see that these are nice, big shallots. These are probably 2.5 to 3 inches across. And already we're into the middle of August, and half of the stalks have already fallen, so I've pulled those, and they're actually in the greenhouse for drying. So let's pull out have a look at another couple here. So this was a group of 3, but one of them, the stalk had fallen, so I pulled it. So you can see the size of these. These are big shallots. Great crop for here in Newfoundland. Shallots are delicious. Leeks, man, our leeks are absolutely wild. So I've never grown leeks before, but multi-sowing seems to be, once again, the way to go. There's no fooling around with counting out individual seeds and putting them in your trays. You just scatter all your leek seeds basically into one tray, and when it comes time to plant out, you basically pull apart 3 or 4 of the leeks from the tray with the roots dangling, and you pop it down into the ground. So I planted these in groups of 3. They're about 15 inches apart, and you can see they're absolutely perfect. They're really tall. These are up to my hips, so they're about 3 feet tall now. And you can see that the stalks on them are huge. Some people pile them up to blanch them, but these guys are going to grow long enough that if I peel away a few of the outside leaves, they're going to be absolutely fine. So some of them have sized up quite nicely, and they're probably at least 1.5 inches in diameter. So this is a group of 3, you can see, right? I mean, they're all really close together. They were even closer together, but as they grow, the roots spread out, and they literally just force each other apart, and they make room. So they actually plant really well together. So yeah, leeks, another success story. They worked out really well. Multi-sowing is the way to go. It was definitely less work overall compared to what I've done in previous years. So I will be using that methodology again next year. Red onions. Okay, red onions. I grow red carpet. Red carpet is great onion. Once again, it's like 90 to 100 days, which is good for here in Newfoundland because our season is fairly short. These guys are still bulbing up, but you can see the greens are huge. This is actually past my hips, so it's probably 3.5 feet tall, and some good sized bulbs. This guy back here is really sized up. That guy there is kind of an average sized onion, and these here, they're sizing up, but they seem to be a little slower than the Cartier. Whether or not I'll grow them again, we'll see how they bulb up. If they bulb up nicely, then yep, I'll grow them again. If they don't, I'll try a different variety next year. And all of this is all this Cartier that I have grown over here, so those are extras. But you can see multi-sowing once again, right? Big onions right there, nice big onions, and they just push each other apart. I mean, they were like basically millimeters apart when they were really tiny. Like their root systems were this far apart, but now the root systems, or where the main root comes out, is probably 3 inches apart. They just push each other apart as they grow, and they love it. So Next year, once again, that'll be a method that I'll use in the garden. Other multi-sowing successes. Okay, turnips. Turnips have actually been absolutely amazing. It's the best way ever to grow turnips and radishes because there's no fooling around with like succession planting. Succession planting was so hard all the time to figure out when I needed to plant more. Like it just took up a lot of time and effort in, I guess, writing down schedules, and you know, it was just a pain. So this year I multi-sowed. So this is basically some multi-sown turnip now. They're baby guys. Here are some multi-sows that were put in a while ago. There's a little bit of damage on some of these. This looks superficial. I don't really see anything on it, but I'll probably spray these with BTK later. But you can see they just push each other apart. You see, look, here's the bulbs, and as they grow, they just push each other apart. And some of these are ready to be picked now, and there's no fooling around. And as they get bigger, they just keep pushing each other apart. I mean, look at these, right? Just pushing each other apart. And I found that growing more than 4 in a group doesn't work well. Growing 3 to 4 does. So when I seed 4 in a group, and sometimes you might get one where there's no germination, so you know, who cares? You just leave it. Don't bother to plant another seed. Just kind of leave it, and you know, basically you end up getting 3 turnips instead of 4 in the group. But I always just pull the smallest one, or the biggest one, sorry. So I always just pull the biggest one, and as the smaller ones grow, you kind of get that natural succession, and you don't need to worry about succession planting. The other thing that I guess I had already verified that grew well in the greenhouse back months ago was multi-sowing radish. Multi-sowing radish works amazingly well. It's by far the best method that I have found for radish so far, and it's the same deal, right? They all just push each other apart. Sometimes you end up with funny ones that have curves and stuff in them, but who cares? Food is food, man. Right? I mean, it doesn't matter if your radishes are curved. And here's some that are in now that I just seeded maybe 2 weeks ago, and you know, they'll be kind of ready later in the fall. We just pull from them as we need them, and they kind of naturally succession each other as you pull the larger ones. So the other thing that actually worked out really well this year for multi-sowing is beets. So these are tubular beets, and they were sowed 2 or 3 per bunch. And you can see, I mean, they just push each other apart as they grow. And these guys are huge. The yellow beets, same thing. So this is actually just a round beet. So you can see in under here, it is just form a clump. So there's 4 seeds in the hull, and I thinned out down to 4. I think the seed for beets kind of like a multi-seed. So only 2 came up here, but that's fine. And over here, yeah, we got 2 or 3 down through there. So, you know, the beet situation worked out really well this year for multi-sowing. I guess the last thing that I kind of seeded using this method this year was fennel. And surprisingly enough, fennel actually grows really well when you do it this way. So our fennel bulb, that is, fennel bulb, was done using this method, and I went by Charles Dowding on this. He said, you know, kind of 2 per group, and here's 2 per group, and these bulbs are, you can see they're nice and big. That's probably 5.5 inches across, 2.5 to 3 inches thick, and great bulbs. And once again, they just push each other apart. All right, so that's multi-sowing, and those are the successes that I've had in the garden this year. So for onions, like just plain white onions, I found that 3 to 4 per group work well. For red onions, same deal. Leeks, 3 is good. They kind of got a lot of greenery, so they kind of come up and sprawl out. So 3 works well, and you know, the spacing on most of these is anywhere from 12 to 15 inches. Shallots, same deal, 3 to 4 per group, and you know, 12 to 15 inches between groups, and it seems to give us good enough spacings. Turnips, 3 to 4 per group. Don't try to do any more. They don't grow well. None of them grow well, I find. But with kind of 3 to 4 per group, if you end up with 3, great. If you end up with 4, okay, you'll still end up with good turnips, and that works really well. Spacing about 8 to 10 inches between, let's say, plugs with 3 to 4 plants, and the same deal with radishes. Now the radish I'm growing is a French breakfast radish, so it may be dependent on the type of radish, but for us, 3 to 4 actually works really, really well. So those are the multi-sowing successes that we've had in the garden this year. I'm quite pleased. You know, if you've, I guess, you know, learned anything from the video and you like, I guess, the content, please like and subscribe. You can reach out and follow us on Facebook. We're at the Homestead at Flat Rock. On Twitter and Instagram, we're at FR_homestead. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you in a new video soon. Later.